So I think for us, it's how do we look at ourselves and sort of take our ego and put it in the closet and help our clients do the same? Because I think when they do that, then they can open themselves up to the world because anything then is possible. If it's not about you, if it's about the planet, if it's about the work, if it's about the community, if it's about society, if it's not about you, then I think your ego has to be pushed out of the way.
Hello, everybody. Good evening to everybody who's joining from India and Asia. Good afternoon from the Middle East and Europe. And good morning who are joining us from the Americas side of the world. Welcome you all for today's Future of Coaching webinar series, which is hosted by Ram. And today you can see with me, I have Kiwa, who is the new member at Coacharya, who would be hosting these sessions going forward. And we have our lovely panelist, Meryl Moss, from whom you will listen quite shortly. And before we get into our webinar and the details, please do let us know in the chat box, where are you joining from? How are you feeling today? And what is your state of being when you are entering into this Future of Coaching webinar? We are always very happy to hear from all of you. Welcome. Cynthia, what is Jumbo Kathy, I wonder? Hello, thank you, everybody. Okay, so without much ado, I think, Ram, I'll hand it over to you to describe what is it that's going to happen in today's conversation with Meryl.
Yeah. For your education, Komal, Jambo is Swahili, and I think they are both greeting each other in Swahili. It just means hello, because I learned that because my wife Nina was born and brought up in East Africa, and I learned a few phrases. And one of them, maybe I'm not pronouncing it very well in Swahili, that I had to learn to be able to sort of seal the deal, as it were. Mimi napenda wewe, which means I love you. So a few other things like that. So all of you, and I'm sure both Cynthia and Kathy would be able to resonate with that. Yeah, that's more East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, not so much South Africa. Okay. Today, first, I'll let Meryl introduce herself in a few minutes, and then also Kiwa. What we had talked about, Meryl comes with a great background, which to me is always very impressive, because she comes from two of the educational institutions that I'm extremely partial towards. One is the Kennedy School at Harvard, not just Harvard, but specifically the Kennedy School, and also Brown, which is not that well known as an Ivy League, probably one of the best Ivy League universities in the United States. So when I saw her profile, and then she had mentored with us and taken her, or in the process of getting to her EACC, it was an exciting opportunity to talk to someone as to why, with all that background behind her, and especially program in coaching with Brown, and she came to us, and what was it that she gained from Coacharya, and from there on, moving to other subjects. And Kiva has been with us for the last about, I think, 6 months, probably a little bit more, I'm not quite sure, but I guess between 6 months to a year. And I was extremely pleasantly surprised to learn. And one of the things as the organization is getting bigger and bigger is that I'm getting to know less and less about more and more people. So that's a sad part of it. But that she is going through her coach training program with Nobantu, who is one of my favorite coaches. And she was the one who introduced all of us and sort of got us to work with the concept of Ubuntu. And so she was talking to me about what she was learning from there, and she was going to blog about it as well. And Komal, of course, you know, for quite a while, she has been anchoring this program, and she has been with us at least for about a couple of years or more. And she moved from India to Toronto. So it's a very mixed group of people. Komal from India, who's now settled down in the North American space, Kiwa, who still is in India, and the future is huge and bright for her, and Meryl, who's getting into coaching after a very, very a reputed and powerful academic career, as well as she has been in CXO positions in various other areas, especially the health. So we'll get into the nitty-gritties of what we want to discuss in a few minutes' time. And the general theme that we are going to talk about is in line with the theme that Coacharya has for the month, which I think between Magda, Komal, Kiva, they arrived at it as sustainability. So we'll try and explore a little bit about what it means to all of us. Meryl, you first, and after that, Kiva, if you could just introduce yourself, and then we will get into the business of the day.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm actually very honored. I was very attracted to Coacharya and have attended many of these webinars. I actually retired in January from 35 years as an executive. During that time, as Ram mentioned, it was very important for me to have good training. So I did go to the Kennedy School at Harvard. I went to Brown for an executive master's in leadership and maintained a job as an executive. Wanted to be a good leader, like really wanted to be a good leader, and worked hard to figure out how to do that. And I think that I can talk a little bit about what I think that is and what I think it's not. And then coaching was just a natural transition for me in my retirement. I'm very busy too, which is fantastic. And I do leadership coaching. And I think sustainability is very much a relevant theme, because the way that many of our organizations operate, this top-down approach, I really don't think is sustainable. So in that, we can talk about that more, but let me pass it over to you so you can, Kiwa, so you can introduce yourself and you get a chance to talk as well.
Sure. Thank you, Meryl. I'm really excited for the conversation today with you on this. Thank you so much, Ram, for having me over. A quick introduction about me. So like Ram said, I joined Coacharya a couple of months back last year. And before that, I've actually been in the social development space for over 10 years now. I worked in different roles, but mainly all of those roles had one thing in common, which was people. And the second thing being what today's topic is, which is sustainability. And I think that got me really excited about today's webinar, because I think when I think of sustainability, I always go back to thinking about people and the potential and the power that a person holds in creating something long lasting. So I was I'm really looking forward to the conversation today to explore how leaders can enable that, and how do we have those kind of conversations. So that's it for me, and over to you, Ram.
Yeah, thanks, Kiva. Thanks, Meryl. Thanks, Komal. Let me start it this way. A couple of days ago, I had a brief conversation on email with Komal. She was talking about sustainability, and she was talking about a blog that I had written. What is it that we would like to do more on this? Traditionally, and I find this with a lot of organizations which are formed by coaches as well. It's all about what you can do, what someone else can do, what the organizations can do, what the industry should be doing, what the politicians should be doing. And it's never about what I can do or you can do. Because most of the things that we sort of attribute to the climate change has been about issues which perhaps are not really seemingly under our control. What can you do about petroleum industry, for example? What can you do about oil spills, for example? What can you do with guys like Trump or equivalent people or whatever, stuff like that? So when Komal and Kiwa said, look, we are having sustainability as a topic this month, what can we do? So I wrote out one which I've been feeling deeply for a long time, but that's only one part of the story, and I'll tell you the other part of the story now. So I talked about Otto Scharmer, Theory U, and how it really made me look in a different way, from the absencing mode of closed mind, closed vision, closed heart, closed will, etc., to the open one. Mm-hmm. And why does that need to happen with every one of us in the transformation? That's all fine. And then the crux of that question is, how do we then influence other people from doing something similar to what we believe in? I don't know how many you have, but please, please, I beg of you, watch these two documentaries, which I think I sent to Kiwa and Komal a while ago. One is called Coacharya. That was actually made in 2014. And another one, probably last year, called Seaspiracy. Cowspiracy, C-O-W, spiracy as in conspiracy, Seaspiracy. I don't know what effect it'll have on each one of you. I have no idea. And I'll probably write a blog on it after this session. But my wife and I, when we watched that, we are seriously thinking, seriously thinking not in the sense of debating, that we would like to become vegans. Not for any moral kind of thing. I was born a vegetarian. I was born a Brahmin in India, and 70%, 80% of people in India are anyway vegetarians, so it's not a big deal. Then after several years, for about having been briefly eating meat, drinking, and so on for 40 years, 45 years, I completely gave up and again started eating meat, fish, drinking, and so on. And these two, I'm not going to go into detail about it. I just would like to explore what you guys in the panel think and what other people there out in that audience think. They raise these issues in a way to the level of our own consciousness. I'm deliberately saying raise, not reduce. Because we are all in the habit of just passing the buck. Oh, it's not my problem. Industry is doing, politicians should do this. Here, simply put, the lesson is that if you stop eating meat, if you stop eating fish, and if you stop eating dairy products, we are not here talking about your health. We are talking about the survival of this planet. And this is scientific. Till today, no one, not one person has been able to say that the scientific facts presented in those two documentaries produced at the risk of the lives of the guys who produced it. Because believe you me, the industries that they were talking about, what they call animal agriculture and marine agriculture, they are run by mafias, they are run by murderers, and these guys were at the risk of their lives. And they have conclusively established, and this has not been challenged, because people could have easily, 2014, they could have easily gone to courts and said, we are defaming us and this, that, whatever. None of it was possible, but it was all hushed up because as much as possible, it was not propagated. That all these various organizations, globally famous, environmentally conscious agencies, green this, green that, eco this, eco that, they are all in cahoots with these people because basically these industries donate to them. They do not want to question. It's much easier, therefore, then to say, hey, petroleum, renewable energy, fossil fuels, all that kind of a stuff, which is important, I'm sure. But if you just go to even the websites, forget the documentary, they both take about an hour and a half to watch each. So conclusive that the calamity, disaster that is being pushed on us by the petroleum, fossil fuel, and all that kind of industries is a fraction of what this animal marine agriculture is doing to us. It is that clear. Okay. So for many of us, it's immediately, oh, you are taking the meat of my mouth, the babe's mouth, as it were. I don't care a damn. You can go and eat as much as you want. And especially if you eat fish, after watching this documentary, I have stopped eating fish because it's gory what is put on your table. So the farmers, fish farmers, as they were, they have a color chart based on which they take the pretty much dying fish, which are gray and horrible looking, and you can paint it to any color that you want. And that can be served on your table. Okay? And that's what we are eating, believe you me. I'm sorry for those who are yet to have your dinner. And if you're going to have fish, don't. And many of the other things apply as well. Okay? And I'm not doing it for drama here. I'm just telling you what it is. If sustainability at the end of the day simply means for all of us the same thing, forget about all these codes about economic, social, governance, and environmental, all that nonsense, which are there for the big five to make money. It's about our great-grandchildren. Do they have a place to live and thrive? Even our own grandchildren, even my own grandchildren. The way things are going, it's probably not likely to happen. And there's very good evidence to show that if you today completely stop all fossil fuels, 100%, if that were possible, the world will still end because of animal agriculture and marine agriculture. Oceans will die, land will die, and human species will die first before any others. Cockroaches will live. So the only way that you will sustain yourself is to become a cockroach. It's a great alternative for all of us. Okay. So now my question really is this. I know coaches organizations which talk about climate change, but I've never seen them talk about this. And I've reached out to a few of them and say, why? I feel ashamed that I wasn't aware of this. Because moving to vegan and stuff like that, to me, it seemed, kind of pussyfooting attitude and stuff like that. But when these facts and these things were figured, and I tried to dispute them as much as I could mentally because I went to other sources to connect with this. But there's enough amount of research done by many, many great academic institutions to support these things. And they are absolutely true. So let me stop my raving and ranting at this point in time. So I would like to start with Meryl as someone who has been in the medical space, who has been in the Kennedy schools, which is about policy management and things like that. So if you're really talking about sustainability as what each one of us can do and what each one of us should do so that we walk the talk we practice what we preach. What should we be doing? Over to you.
So big topic. You know, for me, I think a lot of what we as coaches can do for ourselves and with our clients is to help people to be accountable. And what I mean by that, and I think that you hit it on the head, is that people talk the talk. They say, we want to get everyone involved. We want to have a sense of community, like you're speaking of. We want to hear everyone's voice so that we can solve problems at a greater level. But they don't do it. They don't do it. And what I think gets in the way, and I'd be very interested to hear about what other coaches have to say, is I think it's our ego that gets in the way. I think that our ego pops up. I actually had a client this week that was funny, that she drew a picture of her ego as this balloon, this helium balloon. And we're working on getting that to pop down, because when she's in her ego, she's thinking about herself. And so, you know, when you think about yourself, you don't think about the planet. When you think about yourself, you're not thinking about your great-grandchildren. And when you think about yourself, you're not thinking about how to sustain anything at all. So I think for us, it's how do we look at ourselves and sort of take our ego and put it in the closet and help our clients do the same? Because I think when they do that, then they can open themselves up to the world, because anything then is possible. If it's not about you, if it's about the planet, if it's about the work, if it's about the community, if it's about society, if it's not about you, then I think your ego has to be pushed out of the way.
Kiva and Komal.
I think, Meryl, as you were sharing, two words came to my mind. One was awareness, and the other was empowerment. Mm-hmm. So when I say awareness, I think what I mean by that is when we use sentences like what can I do about it, or I don't know what I can actually do about any problem or any challenge that comes around us. I think the question kind of starts from there, right? So the exploration starts from there. So when you know that you don't know something, right? Like you said, how do we put our ego aside? Or how do we say, okay, but I'm going to take that next step, which is understanding what is it that is in my control. I think is one area that can be explored. And I think that can happen for any individual in any capacity, right? And when I say individual, I mean students. I mean people maybe who've just started off their jobs. It could be people in literally any form of career. It doesn't have to be a particular sector. It doesn't have to only be environment, or pure sustainability. It can literally be anybody. I think one example of that is a very simple one that I've seen shift a lot, at least in the area where I stay, is use of, cloth bags versus plastic, and I, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I lost that last one. What did you say? Clawbacks?
Cloth bags made of bags made of cloth. Yeah.
Oh, cloth bags. Yeah. Okay.
Versus, let's say, using plastic, right? So I think it's a very small change, but I think that's something that I have seen evidently happen around me over the years. And I think it probably started with one level of awareness, and it could also be fashion in a way, or it was something that was celebrated so much that it was something people wanted to participate in. The other word that I had used was empowerment. And I wanted to draw a connection to that because I think sometimes when we think of large systemic changes that are needed for things to actually, change, it looks daunting and it's definitely scary, right? Like if tomorrow I have to figure out a waste management system for an entire city, I don't even know where to begin, right? But a small change like this is in my control. And I feel it's that small shift that you can create, the dent that you can make that can actually lead to a larger ripple. And I think knowing that you have that power within you to cause that ripple, I think that we spoke about, right? Which is knowing about anything I do is going to have an impact on my children, my grandchildren, the larger world, the planet. I think, yeah, those were just two thoughts that came to my mind as you were sharing, right? As like, so what is it which is in my control? So I think awareness and knowing that I am already an empowered person and I don't always need a system to empower me or for me to empower a system. So, yeah.
Komal?
Okay, thank you so much, Ram, Meryl, Kiva. I sort of resonate with all your ideas and what you're saying. It's pretty interesting that ever since me and Kiva, we were talking and thinking about sustainability as a theme, I've been thinking more and more about my grandparents, the life in the village when I was a little girl. And somehow, whenever I think about my childhood, the life in the village, so my grandfather was a farmer, not educated, never gone to school. And when I think of him, I think his life was so sustainable. My childhood in my village was so sustainable. There wasn't much. I have seen him always wearing the same kind of attire. He never had more than 2 pairs of clothes with him ever. Same kind of shoes. So it's like a character figure who would always look the same, but lived a very, very content life. The house had 3 families living together. Nobody had their own bedrooms. But still somehow that childhood is so memorable for me. And I feel that back while I was growing up, it felt like that, oh, they were poor. They didn't have much money, many resources. But now when I look back, I feel like, oh, but their life was so sustainable. It was so in tune with the environment and the area where they were living. And the thought that was coming to me is that what have we brought abundance to be? What have we brought wealth to mean for all of us? Because I get really stressed going to the shopping malls, seeing so many clothes out there, so much of food. And the question that I somehow find myself wondering about is, do all the people in the world put together really need that kind of stuff as it being produced? Do we all need that amount of food which is getting produced? And coming to Ram's point, do we all really need that many fishes, that much of seafood on our plates? Is it really our need, or what is it really? And so for me, when I look back at sustainability, the question comes to is, what meanings are we associating with our way of being? What really abundance means for me? Because if I look back from where I am now, I feel like my grandparents' life was pretty abundant. I mean, they always had what they need. And today, I really don't see many people as satisfied and content and whole in their lives around. So for me, really, I think when it comes to sustainability, my focus goes on to those meanings that we associate with our lives.
I think that's lovely, what you just said. I think it's lovely. And, I didn't grow up that much differently than you did. We're Portuguese, so immigrant family, big community, everybody supporting each other. We don't have that anymore. We're all over in different places. I think this idea of expertise and becoming so good and the ambition in one particular area and not being a part of a whole, especially in the United States right now. I mean, we are so divided, and that is not a lie. And that is not an exaggeration. It's not about community. It's about individual people. We've taken it to such an exaggerated level. And how do we as coaches create our own community and support our clients to create theirs as well. Ram, I'm sorry if I interrupted something you were going to say.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've added to what Komal has said, and earlier what Kiva had said too. And there are a lot of people on the chat, they have said something similar, supporting these. And I think Vinita, someone had talked about what's called the Sustainable Developmental Goals that UN had originally put out, and then there are other improvements on that. They are fantastic. But the whole problem is, you know, we have been brainwashed into thinking, like, for example, the first thing that Kiva came up with was, instead of using plastics, what they call single-use plastics, to cloth and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, it's terrible. I don't disagree. But if you see these two documentaries, there is absolute factual scientific evidence that is probably less than 10% of the real problem. The real problem is, as somebody put it, one woman was sarcastically saying, cow fart. The methane that is produced by the cows, and that is far more dangerous than the CO2 in terms of NO, NOx, etc., and SOx, and far longer lasting in terms of the bad effects that they leave. And it's order of, I don't know, it's like something like 100 times more than any of the others. Till I saw those pictures, and these pictures are there in graphical format, undisputed, because they are supported by specific things. So the problem is, at one level today, yeah, I'm not saying I don't have any investments in the oil industry or any of those related ones. I never worked in those industries, so I'm not an advocate for any of them. But the point is, it's very easy to pillarize them, and you know that they are the only ones responsible. But here are these others who are posing as do-gooders. You know, we provide you the milk, absolutely perfection, and all others, and the best meat, what's your beef kind of a stuff, and fish, and so on and so forth. It's horrifying. But coming back to what Komal is saying, if you take any religion from any part of the history of the world and humankind, they've all, in one form or another, talked about a few things, apart from not killing somebody else, non-violence, which is pretty much standard to all religions, about leading as simple a life as possible, whether you call it Zen-like, minimalist, or whatever name that you want to call it. And the other is not coveting what other people had. And of course, in some religions, it says, do not covet another's wife, but it's not just a wife, it's about a lot of other things what the other person has. And in the 5 characteristics that yoga lays down as the yama, or universal codes of conduct, these are called ahimsa, satya, asteya, aparigraha, and brahmacharya. Asteya is about not coveting, aparigraha is about living simply. That is part of supposedly the entire religion, which is today become Hinduism. The same thing was true of Buddha. The same thing was true of Jesus. The same thing has been true of Islam, to its zakat and various other kinds of things, living as simply as you should. If we just take that as a moral responsibility, just like Komal said, can you live with just maybe, if not 3, maybe 5, whatever that number is, that is all that you really need, till you wear them out and wear something else, and don't have to wear it because it's a fashion. And I know many people today who have 30, 40 pairs of shoes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about really even rich people, ordinary people. Whatever for? Who are you trying to impress? Not only what does it cost to you, But what does it cost to society? What does it cost to sustainability? What's it going to cost in terms of what your children and grandchildren are going to have? Is that possible to look at it from that perspective? And then it becomes much simpler. Then you can't just turn around and say, hey, I'm doing it because the other person is doing it. Or don't do it the way the other person is doing it. The way that you want to do it. Like, well, you pointed out, it's not about the ego of whatever it is, which prevents you from looking at your own grandchildren and what's going to happen, but taking responsibility for what you're doing. And then coming back to these two, which are occupying my mind space at this point in time, till we decide to do something about it, and how we decide to do what we eat and drink, on which we have control. We have total control. Humankind is the only species which eats when it's not hungry, which drinks when it's not thirsty, which has sex, recreative, not procreative. Everything that nature abhors. And in turn, I'm sure, as I said somewhere in my blog, the nature is going to demand its flesh, pound of flesh, yours and mine, no doubt about it. It's going to happen one way or another. So, yeah, somebody said dogs, but those dogs are domesticated, sorry to say, and cats. If you leave them in the wild, they would be perfectly happy. We have, just like we have created gods out of our image, we have domesticated dogs out of our image. So much as I love them, I think it's unfortunate. But if each of us can just take a few things that we can do for ourselves and say, hey, this is what I'll do in my life, in which I have control. What I eat, what I drink, what I consume, how I act, and then propagate that to other people to the extent that we can, you will soon see a change that is happening. Instead of going into the pulpit and saying, oh, you need to do this. As coaches, we need to do this. At the end of the day, we are first humans. And then we have coaches. I don't know anyone who's been born a coach, with a halo around their stupid head. And there are some people who claim to me, oh, I've been a coach for so long. Oh, you are a born coach. My God. I fall at your feet. You are the noble Buddha. I'm not one. I turned coach later than Meryl did now. Maybe at 65 or something. So it doesn't matter. So I'm not here speaking as a coach. I'm not trying to say, because I'm a coach, I think differently. I think differently because I'm a human being. And I'm a concerned human being. Now, every time I do any of these things, the first thing that will come to my mind is my 3 grandchildren. What are they going to be 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road? Do they have a life to live? And if they don't, whose fault is it? It's mine. So your thoughts?
I think we've got some great chats going on around here. Beth Livingstone says, in travels to rural Guatemala, I was struck by the beauty of the lifestyle. At the same time, I was struck by the painful medical conditions not treated. It was thought-provoking and a little hard to reconcile internally. Beth, the same thing recently happened to me because I went back to the Azores where my family was from, and I still have lots of family there and speak the language. And I looked at where my great-grandparents lived, and it was not in good conditions. And the medical treatment that my great-grandfather got from Parkinson's disease was very minimal as compared to my sister, who has the same thing, who's treated well and who hopefully has a bit of a better quality of life. So I think there's a balance here, but we've gone so far to one side where everything is about what you can buy and what you own and who you are in the strata of status, or the strata of status, that we've lost what makes us all connected. And I think probably with this group of coaches, we tend to be the ones who want to be connected and who want our clients to be leaders in ways that are generous and open-hearted. I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but I think, I think someone else, Jennifer Cohen, says, we give up something and we gain something. That's the nature of the change, and we can adapt to the change. Look at all the change we've adapted to. So I think as as coaches too, we have hope. We have hope, but we've got to be the first line of defense, right? Is that what you're asking us, Ram? Is we need to step forward.
No, I would like you guys to talk about this more, because see, I mean, like what Jennifer says is, yes, there are certain things that we have sort of, sorry, something happened to my Zoom and I completely lost my screen. Okay, now, I remember 30, 40 years ago, there was the thing called Club of Rome. Kiwa wasn't brought in then, certainly. And I think, Meryl, you would probably remember that there was this prediction that there isn't enough food, and therefore, in the next 20 years or 30 years, the world would starve. That didn't happen, okay? Because there was the Green Revolution, the White Revolution, all kinds of stuff, changes in agriculture, and so on and so forth. So for many people, that's another tool in the kit. Oh, no, we will manage somehow. The question is, there is probably a threshold beyond which we may not be. That's number one. And secondly, there are a lot of things that needed to change even for that to shift, because till then, and if you really look at the population, in the 1800s, 1800 to 1900, I think it came from something insignificant to about 1 billion. And in the next 100 years, it became 2 billion plus. And in the last 100 years, between 1900 to 2000, it had gone from 2 to 7 billion. Today, we are more than 7 billion. Okay, so it's been exponential. But because of all this Club of Rome and other stuff, the population growth to some extent has come down. It's in fact less than what is called a reproducing limit of less than 2 or 2 point something, whatever, except in a few countries and a few spaces. So some things have happened. And of course, a lot that has been done on fossil fuels in terms of why we should reduce plastics, why renewable stuff should be more used and energy should be produced that way. All that is absolutely correct. But there are some areas where we believe that if we just address these, that's going to be enough. And that's what these two documentaries show. That is unlikely to be enough, because we do not seem to understand the magnitude of this problem. Eating animals is just being presented as a humane problem for many, or a moral or religious issue for some, not presented in a scientific way as to how much more food that we need to feed animals for that to become feed to humans. Because the conversion efficiency of producing animal meat is about 1/10 or less than that of plant. So you're using that much, 20 to 30 times more land in terms of doing that. And similarly in water, because of there's something called a by-kill. For each fish caught, they kill 5 other species which are caught in the nets, because that is how they fish. As a result, the entire ecosystem is getting disturbed, and all kinds of sea life. And we should remember this. I mean, if we have done even our kindergarten science seriously, life started with the marine system. There was no land. That is how the first creatures started, even the single cell being started in the waters. And that is how eventually we moved. So do we need to relook at those? So it's yes, at one level, human beings adapt to change. So as I said, finally, all of us will become cockroaches because that's what change means. So we should be fine with that. Something will happen. We will all start growing this and maybe something else and whatever else it is. And that is what we will have. So that's probably a change we can adapt to. But I'm not quite comfortable with that change. So anyway, yeah, if you would like to see what is out there, and I don't have any answers, honestly. I mean, these are things which throw up questions. Even to think about moving back from eating meat and have less of dairy and fish and things like that, it's still it's something not completely settled, because I'm trying to figure out whether that's the right way to go, or is there something else, less and more in moderation or something of that sort. So each of us will have to come to our own decisions, and we need to be comfortable with that. But as coaches, as different from just ordinary human beings, we need to reflect more. We need to be more spiritually inclined, in the sense that we need to care about other people, not just ourselves. So when we bring those into the equation, can we do something different?
Yeah, you've got some chat going here too about that. You know, Abraham George said, as coaches, we need to be authentic. And I think that that is absolutely imperative. We need to be present. We need to be authentic. We need to be totally there with our clients. And Vanitha, I would love to hear more about what this means. We need healthy clients to become a coach. Sustainability is the only way to sustain coaching. It's very interesting. Jennifer said she loves it. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go.
When I moved to Canada, I got to know quite a lot more about the indigenous culture of Canada, the First Nations, the Native people and their ways, and sort of what happened. In a way, we sort of share some history of colonization in India as well as in Canada. And before you come to any new country, you don't know much in depth about, what has been the culture from where it sort of evolved. And one very interesting part in this about the native culture is that the elders were respected quite a lot because they were the knowledge keepers. They were treated as the knowledge keeper of the society. And because Canada, given the geography that it has, the weather conditions it has, primarily it wasn't a farming community. It was more like the hunting, gathering ways of life before the French, British, and Dutch came here. But their ways of even catching fish or doing anything else, whatever they used to do, were so aligned to the natural environment or habitat where they were. They had certain rules. They knew for how long they can sort of fish from one side and when they need to stop it and give it a rest and where to move. And so their entire lifestyle was sort of moving around, taking care of the nature as well, because they knew that if we wouldn't take care of this land or the sea, that is a part of our living, then it's a problem for our future generations. And I wonder what happens, like when we know that, yes, there have been people whose methods, whose knowledge was tested, tried, attuned in line with the organization, with the nature. What stops us from learning from them, learning from those ways and replicating them? I wonder why they do not become a part of the policies, strategies, rules, and laws. like one small thing I got to know in Canada, that you do need a license to fish. Nobody can just go and fish anywhere. But I don't know if that is sufficient.
You're right, Komal. You and I would need a license to fish.
Yes, but what
Okay.
about the corporates?
The guys who are doing it, and if you see this movie, you will understand that. Another thing that you're saying is absolutely the old nation people in Canada, the native people in America and other places, they actually knelt and prayed before an animal, before they killed the animal, and said, I'm sorry, I have to kill you because I need to eat you for me to survive. So there was a tremendous amount of respect. It may seem strange that they had, but they were considered pagan. They were considered uncivilized because they worshipped animals. We, of course, are geniuses, brilliant. We worship mammon. That's much better. So that's absolutely great. So yeah, there are many things that can possibly change as well. So question is really, let's talk about, like, I'm seriously thinking, yeah, I do realize that it is not absolutely essential to be vegan. If supposing the entire environment around me is based on moderation, and the farming is done or whatever that is done in a way that is in line with what's available there, and it's authentic. It's not the way that is the commercial kind of stuff, exploitation of nature, etc. And I'm sure it is, but unfortunately things have gone far beyond, so things need to be corrected, and live minimalistically. So if each of us, what do we think that we need to do? Like you started it with minimalism. So if you were to practice minimalism, what would you do? Use your car less, or would you eat meat less, or would you do something else differently? That's where it hurts, right?
What's so interesting is that I'm going to have a grandchild for the first time. So this is number one grandchild. And the industry is so powerful. So what are my husband and I looking at? Car seats. We're looking at strollers. We're looking at furniture for the nursery for my daughter and her husband. We're looking at what else? Swings. And what else is, and bassinets. So all of these things are our focus. You know, what does the child need? And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, have I been wrong? I've been doing all the wrong things these past couple of months, looking at all the wrong things. And what I really can do for my new grandson would be to help the planet survive rather than make sure he has the perfect, most expensive bassinet that plays a certain type of music. It's really incredible what's happened to our values. So thank you for helping me have a good, new, different perspective today.
Yeah, that's how I think everything starts. And also people like Kiva, for instance, who's an expert on social media. Today, you have certain fantastic advantages. News doesn't take that much time to reach. You can take a subject and you can reach literally millions, if not billions, very, very quickly. So can we present these things, truths, in a way that people can accept them? If you go and tell someone, a guy in, I guess, and whatever, a name that just comes to me, one of the biggest meat producing areas in the United States, and tell him, okay, no, don't eat meat or whatever, he's going to take the gun and shoot you. So that's not going to happen. So how do you present it in a way that makes sense to people? Because many of them in that documentary, there are people who very seriously are talking about what they believe to be sustainable animal agriculture and so on, which then turns out to be not sustainable. They genuinely believe that they are doing the right thing and they are not doing it commercially, but it doesn't seem to be working. So how do these pieces of data, how can they be conveyed to people in a proper way and said in a way that's finally like a story? Not, hey, this is what I want you to do, but if you do this, if you continue to do this way, like Mel was saying, yeah, sure, your grandchild will have the best bassinet for the next 2 years or something. But when that grandchild is 25 years old, is there going to be a world around that grandchild? That's what is frightening. That's what is really frightening. So being the youngest in the group, what do you think here?
I think, Ram, I agree. Stories is one thing that you said, and I think the other would be conversations. I think, like Meryl said, right, this is one conversation. I was just trying to recall, like when I look back at my month, I can actually think of 5 to 8 circles where there has been conversation on sustainability in some form or the other. So 2 weeks back, I'd gone for a birthday party and somebody there was talking about sustainability in fashion and how much like the fashion industry takes up, how much of the planet it actually eats up, and there were all of us, youngsters actually just discussing that. Then thinking about, like you said, social media, there was a post that I got about a cleanup drive that was happening in the area. There's a literacy fest that happens here each year, and the theme is on largely about Himalayas and how you can save, the Himalayas to make it more sustainable. So I think conversations. I think Jennifer here has also put a question. She's written here: how do we turn overwhelm and fear into energy for change? Coaches can help, and I think leveraging the resources around us definitely, I think, is another way. Being associated, when I say that, I mean being associated with circles that in their own ways, be it small, be it big, are trying to do something, even if it just means a conversation, even if it just means posters, right? Because I think change starts from there. And I think I always believe that it's important to look at the change that has already happened, because otherwise it's really, really, I mean, it's not a very positive picture, right? To imagine the earth in the next, 20 years from now. But when you think about these small groups and the small changes that are happening, be it tree plantations, be it people doing story circles in schools, encouraging children, to understand what sustainability means and small steps that they can take, I think I feel really empowered that there is hope and I too can take that small step. So yeah, I would say conversations and surrounding yourself with the right resources, just people who are actually in those circles in whichever way that they are in.
Thanks. I mean, I'm sorry if I put some people off their dinner tonight, those who are yet to have dinner, but that was not the intention. And as some of you have said, it's not about fear. It's about genuinely understanding what we are trying to do to ourselves and humanity, and it's not like I think Vinita said that it's about what we ought to be doing rather than what we shouldn't be doing and so on. So each one has to decide for ourselves. They each want to do that. So whatever your last closing remarks are, and then we are almost at the end of the top of the hour.
Well, I would say what's so interesting is that, Ram, you are so passionate about this and concerned and deeply, deeply concerned, and rightly so. And yet we have Kiwa, who's our youngest here, saying she feels empowered. So that's so interesting to me, because it's a very different way. I expected her to say, I'm afraid. I can't even imagine, but that's not what she said. She said, I'm hopeful. So that means a lot. I think that gives us all a lot of hope.
Absolutely. That's the way it should be. Kiwa and then Komal.
I mean, I was just thinking that if as humans, we are thinking about moving to Mars and we know how to, reach the moon and from there figure a way out to reach Mars, I'm sure we will be able to figure this out as well, because this is a problem that we have created. I think I was reading this quote somewhere by Albert Einstein. I don't remember it verbatim, but it's about if we function the same way in which we've created the problems for us, we won't be able to find a solution. So we need to figure out a new pattern of thinking. And I think that's the role that we can play as coaches, because I think that's what we do well. That's what our role is. And yeah, I'm sure that there will be change. And yes, that's the role that we can play in it.
Yeah. What Einstein said was, you cannot solve a problem at the same
Yes.
level of consciousness at which you would like to have the solution at. So it makes
Yes.
tremendous sense. And yeah, but what you said, Kiva, is absolutely right. I at my age, I don't need to be fearful, and yet I'm fearful for my grandchildren. But you, at your age, you should be brave and empowered. That's the right way to go about it. Fight for it. Komal, you can end the session.
I'll borrow what Venkateshwaran has shared, that about E.B. White's words. It says, I would feel more optimistic about a bright future for man if he spent less time proving that he can outwit nature and more time tasting her sweetness and respecting her seniority. I mean, there's no second word about it. In every which way where we feel like, oh, I would like to challenge or prove something in life, that's all the time our ego speaking. And just to surrender and say, okay, I will enjoy whatever life has to offer. I will enjoy myself with this nature, I think is the path of love.
Totally. Someone said Mother Planet. I completely agree.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we are in the process of destroying our mother, which is probably the worst crime of all. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you very much. So let's reflect. Let's regroup. Thank you. Thanks, Meryl. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kiva. Thanks, Komal. Bye.
Thank you,
Ram.
everybody.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you, Ram. Thank you, Meryl. Thank you, Komal. Bye-bye.